Hi, my name's Phil. I talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss a couple of very pro-Brexit companies that seem to be profiteering from this particular crisis. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, a couple of companies, Dyson and Next, seem to be profiteering from this particular crisis at the moment. We'll tackle Next first, because this one is particularly strange. And at the moment, the government has said that all non-essential workers should stay at home, whether that is working at home or whether that is furloughed at home by their employer. You should not be going out to work unless you are a key worker, unless your work is of importance. And there are plenty of workers that are, of course, of key importance. But it could be argued people working in a clothes shop is not really one of them. So the boss of Next, rather than close the stores down like others have been doing, has not. They've been saying, well, we're still going to do our online orders. Now, I have to say, I get online orders from a number of companies, not Next. I'm sure it comes as no surprise to learn. And all of them, to begin with, at some point, they were explaining, well, we've shut the store down, but we're going to keep the warehouse open for online orders. And they would explain all the measures they've been doing, making sure that there's no workers in close contact with each other, everything's been disinfected regularly, workers have been having their temperature checked when they're coming in the morning, and so on. And yet those places have still said, no, the government have made it clear we're going to close down. They've not said to themselves, well, we think our measures are fine, we'll just ignore the government. They've gone, no, the government have said, retail effectively needs to shut down, non-essential retail. And remember, the government said what they think are the exceptions to that, and I tell you what, it's not clothes. Nor is it the stuff I buy. So those companies have been closing down, but the boss of Next has been saying to their staff, no, you need to come in to deal with the online operations. And so you think to yourself, so how are they getting away with this? Is it because the boss of Next happens to be a Tory donor and a supporter of Brexit? Because this is a national chain, there's no way the government don't know about this. And there's no way the government allowed for this when they explained the measures. So really, they should be, remember, this is supposed to be now enforced by the police. They should be sending the police around saying, no, you've got to shut down. But they're not doing. That seems a little odd to me when it's quite clear that Boris Johnson is frustrated with the lack of compliance with these measures. And yet here we've got a very national case that's seemingly not being dealt with. Hopefully by the time you see this, it will have been. But I would have thought it would be immediate. It should have been closed down before I even heard about it. Then we come on to Dyson and the ventilators. Now, this is a very different example. So Sir James Dyson, of course, leading Brexiteer, who said that Brexit would be really great for the UK. And then when we started to go through with it, promptly moved his operations overseas. In fact, I just had a pointless argument on Twitter with someone trying to suggest that Dyson is a UK-based company. Well, actually, no, it announced over a year ago that it's moving everything, including its head office, to Singapore, or its operations, and registered in Singapore and all the rest of it. And it's been given a contract to make ventilators, which of course the NHS is going to be in desperate need of. Now there's an awful lot of blurry lines on this, so let me explain the facts as known. First of all, we knew that we were going to need extra resources for the NHS back in January. We knew that the corona was going to be a serious issue back in January, and we did nothing. We knew that we were going to need more ventilators. We have companies in the UK that make ventilators specifically for these purposes, and they are being bought by various healthcare systems, but not the NHS. No NHS orders came in. Even when this crisis became serious and the government was saying that they needed to procure more ventilators, they were not doing so. In fact, we've been being told for weeks by these companies in the UK, that produce ventilators, also companies, incidentally, that produce testing kits for the virus. They have not been receiving any NHS orders. So then imagine the surprise when, first of all, the government puts out a thing to manufacturers, engineering firms, can you make ventilators, because we're going to need a lot of them. Now, when I first heard of that, I actually thought it was a good move by the government, thinking, of course, that those who are producing them now are up to capacity. But this is not the case. They can produce more. Whether they can produce enough to fulfil demand, I don't know, but they can certainly produce more. They're just not getting. They are getting the orders from overseas. They're just not getting the orders from the NHS. And then this contract goes to Dyson, but it's not like they've been dragging the feet and they've given the contract to Dyson to make more, but they've also given contracts to the ones who already produced them to make them. That hasn't happened at all. Now this seems strange because again, Dyson, of course, Tory donor, Brexit supporter, and you think, is this, and it is really, I don't even have to ask, I was going to say, is this just the Tories still doing their usual thing? Yes, they've had to massively increase public spending, which they don't like doing, but they're still funneling as much money as they think they can get away with into the pockets of their donors and supporters. And it very much seems like the same thing. Now, there has been some attempts, I think, to muddy the waters here. Now, I'm going to have to be very, very clear about this in terms of my lack of specific knowledge. So there was a suggestion made that in actual fact, the normal ventilators are not going to be any good. That's why the NHS haven't put orders in, because, you know, they plug into the wall and wards, of course, only have so much load. So, and this is sort of true. If you have certain numbers of machines and you plug too many in, you know, the circuit only has so much load and it'll just shut the whole thing off. So the theory of that is sound. You can sort of go okay with that, but there's a couple of weird things about that. So my first thought was, okay, so if this is a thing, and I can perfectly well understand, we're supposedly buying a number of ventilators that is well above what we need for normal capacity, and in theory, plugging all these things in and using them all at once would overload the system. But if that's the case, why are other countries not coming up with this same problem? Why is this a uniquely UK problem? Why are UK hospitals have such little load compared to all hospitals in all other countries who have not come across this problem? Remember, there are other countries who have been buying up ventilators, you know, and so they are already using ventilators well beyond the capacity that they would need under normal circumstances. They've not been running into this problem. Why is it only us? Then I started to investigate a little bit. So I thought, right, let's look up on the websites of places that manufacture these ventilators what the power rating actually is for these things. Are they very power hungry? They are not. They don't use very much power at all. We're talking light bulb level of power. So you would run out of, because remember, a ventilator is not, it's got to be next to a bed. The patient has to be somewhere. So you think about how many ventilators you could realistically put in any one place anyway, because that's limited by how many patients you can have on a bed. You would run out of space before you ran out of load using these things. Again, I don't have specific knowledge about what is the load, in a ward, but I have looked up what the power rating of these machines are. It's not very much at all. I'm not sure I'm buying this. I'm not sure I'm buying it. You would run out of space. What you actually need is more space. So you'd be setting up temporary hospitals elsewhere and they would have their own load. So I'm not buying that one at all. Also, it doesn't explain why the government weren't buying up more ventilators earlier on. Even if they thought to themselves, look, we're going to get to a point where we have too many ventilators for the load in the circuit. Let's say that was a thing. And as I say, I am, having looked at the power rating of these things, highly dubious. But let's say it was a thing. You would still want to put in orders for more ventilators than we currently have, because the load could certainly cope with those, as evidenced by the fact that other healthcare systems have been buying these things. Because it's not like these UK-based ventilator manufacturers are twiddling their thumbs. They're fulfilling orders for other countries, just not ours. So why weren't they putting orders for those in back in January when other countries were? At least to make sure that we've got enough while these contracts went out, which went out very late, to produce, because what Dyson can be producing is battery-powered ones. Which of course still have to be plugged in somewhere to charge them, but you could certainly do that elsewhere. But yeah, so I'm not buying that one at all. What I'm looking at is a scenario where there have been some people who've attempted to profiteer from this and have been shut down. They tend not to be Tory donors and certainly not Brexit supporters. And then you've got people who seem to be getting away with it. And they seem to be Tory supporters and Tory donors. Well, that's the way I see it anyway. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.